My story today comes out of Marijuana Moment, and it's written by Ben Adlin, and it was from yesterday. And the headline is DEA acknowledges the new two-step test for marijuana's accepted medical use is legitimate. Now, what we have scheduled here is a hearing coming up in December over rescheduling. And this is going to follow the Administrative Practices Act under federal law. And what recently happened is that the DEA is asking to put two opioid substances into Schedule 1. And so they snuck into the paperwork in a footnote that, yeah, kind of, sort of, we have to accept a new two-part test because the Office of Legal Counsel says that's what we got to do. So the reading of that, or the upcoming scheduling hearing for cannabis, is that the DEA is going to reluctantly accept a two-part test as opposed to the five-part test. And one of the things that has to be proven or disproven is about currently accepted medical use. And so the previous test the DEA applied, and this goes way back to when they were first brought together in 73, is that the drug's chemistry must be known and reproducible. There must be adequate safety studies. There must be adequate and well-controlled studies proving efficacy. That was always a stickler. The drug must be accepted by qualified experts. Okay, who are qualified experts? And the scientific evidence must be widely available. Now, if you've never seen any of these piss and matches with the DEA, they never let studies go through that were trying to prove efficacy. So the five-part test, you're never going to pass it because you couldn't bring forth these adequate and well-controlled studies proving efficacy. Okay? It wasn't allowed to happen. So now the two-part test, it's whether there exists widespread current experience with medical use of the substance by licensed healthcare providers operating in accordance with implemented jurisdiction authorized programs where medical use is recognized by entities that regulate the practice of medicine, and if so, whether there exists some credible scientific support for at least one of the medical conditions for which Part 1 is satisfied. Now, that one is eminently doable because there was a study by Sue Sisley that showed the efficacy of cannabis, but in the states where cannabis has been recreationally and medically legalized, state medical boards are overseeing how this is being done. State agencies are involved to make sure that it's clean and healthy. I mean, they screw up regularly, but at least this kind of exists. And so there is evidence of its use, and the two-part test is going to be much easier to prove that there is currently accepted medical use. Now, that's going to be one of the big questions coming up in the scheduling hearing in December. Is there currently accepted medical use? And for things like PTSD, we have an approved study. But for things like pain management, for anorexia, or nausea, I mean, those studies are out there. They just haven't been done by the DEA. So now we have a chance to move this. I mean, not that I'm encouraging you to move it, but we have a chance through the administrative law system to get the courts to recognize that this is acceptable and move it to a new schedule. Now, I'm not in favor of the new schedule, and I don't think this is going to be the last that we're going to hear about this, because Sam, these knuckleheads that oppose cannabis legalization, they're already screaming that this is a made-up two-part test. It's only political. But you can just smell what's coming, is that they're going to challenge this. Now, I would challenge it on different grounds. I think it's going to be taken out of the Controlled Substance Act altogether, because the medical parts of cannabis are not enough to keep it there. The actual use, which is more akin to alcohol and tobacco, is not really lends itself to being a medical product. There are some that can be developed, but what I fear is if it goes to Schedule 3, what you're going to get is some tinctures. You might get a few edible products. The rest of it's not going to be allowed. We're still going to have the same trap market and people pushing to get this legalized outside of the Controlled Substances Act. So I think this is a bit of good news, but it's still under the cloud of this is nonsense to try to make this Schedule 3. It should go into alcohol, tobacco, firearms, make a new category for it, and tax and regulate it that way and let the states do it. That's my story for this morning. I'll throw it back to you. What do you guys all think about this?
This is totally politicized, and I don't think that the DEA even has the ability to actually legally do this, to create a whole new process without going through a process to create that process.
I mean, yeah, and it could go the other way too, right? Tomorrow, a new administration could come in. There could be a new head of the DEA, and then they could create a new arbitrary 20-step process that
they're not going to make a 20-step process, bro.
No, I'm just saying. I'm saying if
you're gaslighting.
No, I'm saying if you're no. Let me finish, Jason. What I'm saying is if we're acknowledging that they have the legal authority to create their own 2-step process, then we are acknowledging that they also have the legal authority to create an arbitrary,
and I'm
more
saying
strict process.
That they don't have
I'm not saying it's going to happen.
I'm saying they don't have the authority to do that. And so
I agree with you.
To me, this is the same thing as the Democrats installing Kamala Harris.
Well,
how is that? They have the authority to do that.
They don't have the authority to do that.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jason, that they don't have the authority. And the reason I'm saying is because it becomes a very slippery slope. You're giving them the authority to make this test in any direction that they want. So
exactly.
Yeah. So if you would let me finish, you would have realized that I was agreeing with you and I was helping make that point.
I was helping you to help make that point, Sohum. That's all. This is helping you get there faster.
Oh, yeah.
I got fast track.
Well, the current Supreme Court is taking on the administrative state. I'm not sure I'm going to make any bold predictions of what might happen to this if it gets into court. What is the authority? We've had a 5-part test for years. What was the authority to do that if they can't change it? And do you have to go through the regulatory announcement, notice, and input process to change it? I don't know. And also the loss of the Chevron doctrine, which was the deference to these administrative experts.
Exactly.
This may kill them a lot because they're going to bring in every dog and pony show out there that claims they're experts to go in and fight about this. And I just think the whole thing's, again, pissing up a rope because it needs to be taken by Congress out of the Controlled Substances Act, or the Supreme Court needs to say, nah, you can't withstand. It's unconstitutional. Stick it in Schedule 1, which Nixon did in 1970. It's unconstitutional to be there, and then leave it free swinging and let Congress have to go now do something. They don't want to do shit unless they have to, and maybe the court will force them to do something here.
I mean, the court. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jason.
Please.
I was going to say they should just remove the DEA from this decision-making process altogether. As the enforcement agency, they have an interest in what happens after, so they should not be a part of making the rules. They should be there to enforce the rules that are written by other branches of government.
I don't think the rules allow that.
Penalty of eradicating them from government altogether and defunding and getting them the fuck off the books, period, if they violate any of those conflicts of interest. How about that?
I just think the DEA needs to just focus on fentanyl. The DEA just needs to focus on fentanyl.
Quick with it today.
Well, the goal of the bureaucracy is to continue funding, and anybody who's in charge of a bureaucracy doesn't get funding, they get canned. So these guys are going to fight tooth and nail to keep their power. It's just the way bureaucracies work.
You're so right about that, Dale. But I think the Chevron doctrine, I think you're right about that. I think this is going to come back and bite them in the ass in a big-ass lawsuit, and it's probably going to end up being by Project Sam in reality, who ultimately may save the day from Schedule 3.
Dude, Kevin Sabet is the prophet.
He might end up being the hero and turning from a zero.
I've become the biggest fan of Kevin Sabet over the last 3 months. Tell you what, man.
That would be the greatest thing that would happen because he would hate that so much, but it would be hilarious.
He has his own room over at Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah,
what you got, Jason?
No, he doesn't. Stop the ridiculousness, bro. He runs with the Democrats, bro.
There's no chance.
They were also pretty critical in this story. They were also very critical of Biden-Harris for trying to oversell what they had done with marijuana, which is kind of laughable because we changed marijuana. No, you didn't. It's still a Schedule 1 drug. It's still against federal law. If you get popped with 100 plants, you do 5 years in prison. What have you actually done? It's nothing. Pardon a couple people that had possession, convictions. That's just horse shit. I didn't do anything to move the needle on marijuana. I mean, I'm volunteer. Hey, I got a felony for growing weed. Okay, how about me? It was nonviolent. You know, I want my pardon, goddammit. And until you do stuff like that for people like me and Luke and others who did our time or who's still there and erase our records and move this into another category, it's all political bullshit. They're just blowing smoke up everybody's ass.
Speaking of blowing smoke, we're going to go to a commercial and we're going to be right back.